It is Tuesday night, and you know what that means. We are just after a Grand Prix, and it's the SNL F1 podcast. We are here live on YouTube. Welcome everybody that is listening. Like, share, subscribe to the podcast. We have just come out of our own endurance event at Daytona in SNL, and it was a relative success, our first race here on GT7. And we are joined, as ever, by SNL Wolfbane. Good evening, SNL Wolfbane.
Good evening, Jam.
Good evening. And making his debut, it is the man that finished second on the road on Sunday night. It is the one, the only, the legend that is Matt Psycho. Good evening, Matt Psycho. Yeah, well, it was impressive for you to go off whilst I was on board with you. That was the best Murray Walker moment ever. It was very fun. Mika is saying, "Is anybody there?" Hopefully, Mika can hear us. Hello, Mika. Can you hear us? So yes, great on board. We're going into the chicane. This is how we're meant to do it. Oh no, Matt Psycho's gone off. So perfect Murrayism. Matt. Well, hopefully, whilst we're testing everything else, Mika says she can't hear anything.
I've just tested the stream and I can hear you. I
Okay.
didn't hear Matt and I didn't hear myself, but then we weren't talking at the time.
Well, that would explain it then.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's carry on. So, Matt, because it's your first time on the podcast, just a brief introduction of how old you are and how many years of Formula One you've watched. Oh.
I hate to stop you there, Matt, but we can't hear you on the stream. I think your audio sharing settings might be...
Oh. I've given Matt Psycho the build-up, and
then
you can't hear
silence.
him. He's given some great insight, everybody. He said how amazing that Rene Arnoux was, and Patrick Tambay is his favourite driver ever, and certain drivers in the league remind him of that legend. Can hear Jam, but not Matt, says Mika. Yes. Hopefully Matt will appear. Anyway, I shall fill whilst... Can you hear me now? As Peter Kay used to say a long time ago. That was before Wolfbane probably was born, that was happening.
Yes, we can.
Can you... Yay! There we go. So, Matt Psycho, let's go back to that first question then. Exactly how old are you, and how long have you been watching F1? He was, yes. Nineteen 1980, there we go. So, if you... Oh, you say my favourite driver. He's not my favourite driver. He's just the driver you compare me to. If you don't know that, it's Patrick. Yeah, thank you very much. I quite like that comparison. Not particularly quick, but decent on the day. You know, that's quite good. Mika still can't hear you apparently, Matt, which is weird. Salek is in the chat. Good evening, Salek. Good evening, Tiny Terror as well. So, hopefully, with the audio issues, we're going to get through them. But we're here to talk about the Australian Grand Prix, and it was on Sunday, and it was won by the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc in pretty much a dominant display. Mika can't hear Matt still, she's saying.
I could hear you when I was... Hold on. I'll just... Talk, Matt. Say something.
It's been a very awkward time then. No.
It was working, and then it isn't.
Hello, everybody. Anyway, we'll talk to Wolfbane for a bit about the Australian Grand Prix whilst Matt is sorting out his audio issues. Some proper insight rather than the ramblings of Matt. Dear listener, you've been saved from his ramblings. I mean, he is old. He is very old, so he's going a bit senile in his old age. Anyway, Charles Leclerc. Wolfbane, pretty dominant. Everybody still loves it because Ferrari winning is a novelty.
Happened in a very long time.
Is anybody going to beat Leclerc to the championship? Is it over and done with? We've had 3 races. He's won 2. He's come second in the other. It's done, isn't it?
Sort their car out. If Red Bull do, maybe Verstappen can beat him. But with the form he's on at the moment, I don't know. It's looking. Ominous.
It feels a bit like seeing Leclerc in that more red helmet is reminding me of a certain Schumacher in the way that he just controlled the race in Australia.
Yeah.
He was not challenged apart from the restart with. Yes, he did. Apart from the second restart with Max challenging into turn 1, he was very comfortable all the way through that race. So, yes, very dominant, but... I mean,
there we go.
Hold on, he's back.
Sorry.
Is he here?
Back this time.
Hold on. People, if they can't hear you, Matt...
Yeah, I'll just give up.
will be wondering what I'm talking about. So Matt is here in spirit. You can talk to me, Matt. I can channel you if you want.
There we go. Tiny Terror can hear me. Can you hear me, Tiny Terror? Yes, you can.
Voice, he says. There we go, Brill. Right. There we go.
Right. So, I'm 49, 50 in November, first Grand Prix 1981.
20 years before.
There we go.
There we go.
There we go. and he likes Rennie Arnoux.
And I like Rennie Arnoux. That was much more succinct than my first answer.
Or the second one.
All the second one, as Wolfbane has correctly put. All the third one. Anyway, Matt, I'll ask you about Charles Leclerc. It's all over, isn't it? It's done, finished.
I have a feeling that the Red Bull ceiling is higher. I think they'll probably get more out of it than Ferrari. It all depends if Red Bull can sort the reliability out and then get that car working. So it's a lot. I mean, Red Bull are lucky. There's a lot of races this year.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's done yet. There was a lot of comments in the media about is it done? I don't think so. But I think what's not doing Red Bull a favour is Carlos Sainz is pretty much going to be number 2 now. So he's not going to be taking points away from Charlie. So yeah, I don't think it's done yet. I think if Red Bull get on top of it, I think they've got a fundamentally quicker car. But Ferrari have done an amazing job so far.
It's strange looking at the car itself. It doesn't look too remarkable, yet it just works, and it's bulletproof. It was a weekend for Carlos Sainz that was a weekend of what could have been. His qualifying got scuppered, and he ended up in 9th, and then, well, he tried that move on Mick Schumacher around the outside, which was never really on, and ends up spinning out the race in desperation, and that's a potential... I think he could have challenged the win, given his Friday form, but yet he goes away with 0 points, and Charles is leading the championship quite clearly from, surprise, surprise, George Russell. I mean, it's quite shocking to see Russell's name up there. Another star of qualifying, though, was Fernando Alonso, who was
almost a star.
Almost the star. Apart from a £1.50 piece going wrong in the car and sending him off, and again having to start on the hard tyres to try and make something happen, and it unfortunately again didn't happen. Very similar to his fellow Spaniard and his the driver that hero worshipped him as a child, Carlos Sainz. So that Alpine looks quite quick though.
Yeah, it does. It looked a lot quicker in Alonso's hands than Ocon for I think the first time this season. They've seemed fairly close first few races of the season, but that was the first real difference we've seen between them, I think.
I like the fact Alonso got rid of the fourth DRS. that cracked me up. He hasn't lost that competitive streak of lobbying for his own benefit. That did make me laugh.
He's a wily old fox.
Even Pat Simmons kind of admitted in an interview with Sky beforehand that he'd been lobbying hard, knowing full under safety guise, knowing full well that it would help the Alpine.
Well, it reminds me of at Russia last year, where Alonso was lobbying about the first corner and said, well, anybody can go off in the first corner and just rejoin the track. And then he just did it to prove his point to everybody. He just went, look, this is exactly what I was talking about. Here we go. And I've avoided the corner and lost no positions. It's absolutely fine. So yes, Alonso. He's one of the reasons why he's one of my favourite drivers. He will just take the.
He's probably the one driver who's made me the most mad in the last 20 years, because he could have won, I don't know, you could probably argue 7, 8, 9 championships in a different universe if it wasn't for his personality.
Yes. I was recently listening to a podcast that told me he nearly went to Honda at the end of 2008.
Oh, really?
And, yes. And we all know where that could have ended up. So again, that's another championship in the Fernando Alonso What If Championships. So yeah, probably a 10-time world champion somewhere.
Just goes to show the oldest still can drive, doesn't it? Yeah.
Well, it does, exactly. I mean, you have time to drive because you're all retired and not working. Anyway, talking of drivers that might need to go and retire. Drivers that might have to go and retire. We saw Sebastian Vettel come back, and
no, don't be having a go at Seb.
He
having a go at my boy.
Well, you're talking, so I'll pass it to you, Matt. Seb just looked out of sorts all weekend, and that Aston looks a handful.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people know I'm a pretty big Seb fan. I think more now from how he's developed off track to what he's doing on track. He does seem to be a bit. I thought he'd ironed out a lot of his mistakes last year, but yeah, I don't know whether it was a COVID hangover. I mean, I think I read he did 46 laps over the entire weekend.
Yeah,
something like that. I think it's just lack of experience, and he rode the curb coming out of turn 4, I think it was, and I read interviews. He just didn't know how the car was going to react going over the curb, and he just bottomed out and he lost it. So yeah, sometimes it's hard to be a Seb Vettel fan because he looks pretty ordinary, and you think, where did those 4 championships come from? Where's the driver? But then he does things like he did in the Race of Champions. So you think, well, he's still fundamentally a very good driver. It's just, I don't know, you wonder whether when you've won 4 championships and you've been up the sharp end, that tweet around to the back, he can't be fully motivated. I don't know. It's a shame to see it. Seeing him go off was, I don't know what to make. Sometimes he produced some brilliant drives last year. His one at Monaco was amazing. So I think he's still got it. It just seems to be he doesn't access it as much as he used to.
It's strange having seen him, as you say, win those 4 championships and drive that Red Bull like he did. And as you say, that driver is still there. But I think, remember Bahrain last year, where he was fundamentally making errors, and it just seemed like he'd forgotten how to race in the midfield. So hopefully it's just a bit of rust. But Wolfbane, your opinions on Seb? Is it time to go, or is it give him a bit more
I don't think it's time to go yet. He still shows sparks of being the driver that won 4 championships. It's not he's not that driver anymore, but he's still a very, very competent driver on the grid. It's difficult. There's a lot of younger drivers, very, very fast young drivers coming up. And yeah, he's getting on a bit, but trying to compare him to Alonso's the wrong thing to do. But Alonso's proved that you can be old and still drive. I think Seb's got it in him still. He's just, particularly his first 3 rounds, I think, have just been down to lack of time in the car.
Well, the first 2 rounds he wasn't even in the car, so I mean
Exactly.
we can't judge him based on his performance in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. No,
So-
I think it's lack of time in the car at the moment. We'll see. It's difficult.
Well, he had
to
that.
judge at this
He
point.
had that in the start last year, didn't he? His testing was really shortened by reliability, and it took him a couple of races to get going. But say when he did, his drive at Monaco was amazing. His drive at Baku was amazing, and he almost won the Hungarian, although it wouldn't have counted. But so yeah, I think when he gets a sniff of it, he's still there. But yeah, I think we'll see if the Aston Martin continues to be a bit of a dog. I think he'll go off and do something much more worthy.
I suspect he's more focused maybe on the environmental side and the advocate side of things now. If, as you say, if that Aston Martin becomes the dog that it looks like it is. And talking of Aston Martin, let's talk about Lance Stroll. And I mean, if you squeeze somebody off the track, it just gets noted and you don't get a penalty. He squeezes Bottas off at turn 3 and noted, and then gets a penalty for weaving, which, to be honest, didn't look too bad in comparison. But his incident in qualifying with Latifi, I mean, we don't see crashes in qualifying very often, and when we do, they are incredibly bizarre. What's your take on Stroll's weekend, Wolfbane?
It was a weird weekend for him. He's always been a bit sketchy as a driver. He's grown on me over the last few years, but he's still not. His racecraft isn't brilliant. The qualifying incident was bizarre. Truth be told, I don't know what either driver was really thinking there. I don't know if Stroll deserved a penalty for it. It was a weird incident. The race kind of just nowhere really. It was a bit something and nothing.
It was a bit something or nothing, but he was sort of in the top 10 after the safety cars and had sort of stumbled across that position and was proving quite tricky to overtake. I don't know, Matt, with the qualifying incident, to me it looked like 2 drivers that just got their wires crossed and ended up just hitting each other.
Yeah, I felt. I mean, sometimes I find myself defending Stroll, and sometimes he's a bit of a Marmite character. My fundamental belief with Stroll is if you can put it on pole in the wet, you're not a bad driver.
No,
When he
exactly.
put it on pole in Hungary in was it 2020, and then led pretty serenely until his race imploded. Fundamentally, I think you've got talent, and that's not always a popular view. I don't think. I've had some heated debate about that. He can drive. So, you don't put it on the pole in the wet. I don't care what the car is. To put it on pole in the wet still takes ability. And then he gets mixed up in these kind of incidents that I thought that was a 60-40. I always look at these quite interested. Say, well, if that was SNL.
Yes.
And that was put in as an incident. What would I say? And I would say, well, Stroll looked like he probably been told to move out of the way of cars behind him. Wasn't really aware of what he was doing, but Lafiti saw a gap and thought he'd go for it. And it was just a kind of wrong place, wrong time for the pair of them. And I would have said that was a racing incident, personally. It was probably more Stroll's fault than Lafiti's, but it was Stroll was trying to get out of the way, I think, and had to turn in when Lafiti was there. So
it
was.
As you say, it is something now we kind of look at with SNL, and SNL's a year old. Congratulations to SNL for getting to that point. Self-congratulations.
No, absolutely. For you. No, that's a lot of work to get the league up and running.
But we do look at these things and we do think, well, what did F1 do? And a lot of the time we say, well, F1 doesn't know what they're doing, which is quite poor for the top rung of motorsport. But in terms of Stroll, yes, it was actually Istanbul Park, which is an even more impressive circuit to get pole position in the wet.
No, it was impressive.
He did it at Williams as well. He got that Williams on the front row a few years ago as well.
Monza,
in the wet. Monza in the wet. Which,
yeah.
as you say, he's not a bad peddler, but he gets involved in these incidences that Mugello in 2020 was a funny one for him to crash out of. I can't remember if that was due to a mechanical issue or what.
Yeah, I think it was. I don't think that was his fault.
Yeah, that's okay then.
But he does every now and then. He puts in a drive and he gets sort of 6th or 7th. He does score some decent points. So, yeah.
And in some races, he's just nowhere.
Yeah.
Yes. He's always struggled in qualifying, and that seems to have continued with these new cars. But yeah, he does deserve his place on the grid. So people that say he doesn't, he does. He's definitely worth it. It's a very strange situation to be in with him in the team being owned by his dad. It's never going to be an easy situation. He's guaranteed a seat, but there might become a period in time, if Aston Martin want to become a serious outfit, where that pressure will start to build. But it's not there right now, I wouldn't say. He's definitely putting himself in the position where he deserves to be there. But let's go, instead of talking about some negatives and bits and pieces, let's go for positives. And we had the return of McLaren. We had that return. We've been downplaying them since the first couple of rounds, where we went into testing, or should I say, came out of testing looking like McLaren were going to be somewhere. And then they had a bad Bahrain test, and then they had a bad Bahrain race. But Australia, they're back. 5th and 6th in the race for Norris and Ricciardo, and 4th place on the grid for Norris in qualifying. Is this just track specific, or is this the return of McLaren, Wolfbane?
It's hard to say. They've had a couple of weeks since then. I think someone mentioned on the commentary, it might have been Crofty, I can't remember. Someone mentioned that apparently they'd basically botched the brakes up to try and fix the issues that they were having in the Bahrain test, and didn't have time to sort them out for the first 2 rounds, and did for the round 3. It could be the return of McLaren. I'd love it to be the return of McLaren. From what the drivers have been saying, they think it's too early to say. I think it could be a one-off. It could be the car was really good around here and isn't for the next race. Yeah.
I suppose if Sainz and Verstappen had finished, it would actually have been 7th and 8th, which is probably where that car is. So, Matt, what are your thoughts about McLaren, especially the start of the season? Quite a disappointment initially, but hopefully there's some shoots of recovery.
Yeah, they've been. Their first test was great, wasn't it? Norris was sort of trying to downplay it all and say, yeah, we're not really as quick as we might seem. And there was a lot of good noises about, they weren't suffering from porpoising, and I read some articles about how they were doing it aerodynamically to seal the floor, without having to mechanically do it, and there was quite a lot of good vibes about where they were at, and then all of a sudden they took their first couple of races didn't go well, and as Wolf said, I think a lot of that was brakes. I have a feeling that it was circuit specific in Australia, and come Imola they're not going to be so hot. I'd like to be proved wrong, but some of the noises I've read sort of suggest, they're not confident that they've made a real breakthrough. I think that the brakes definitely held them back. And I think that's been a lot of the problems with a lot of the teams. They're all having these specific issues they're having to focus on. So whether it be brakes with McLaren, or porpoising with Mercedes and the like, and Aston Martin, that they're losing development time because they're under fix some fundamental problems first. So with McLaren, brakes definitely held them back, but I'm not sure. I mean, you'd expect them to be fourth, wouldn't you? So sort of 7th, 8th on the grid.
They definitely. They looked better than the Mercedes in qualifying, or certainly Norris did. But in the race, they just couldn't keep the pace up.
Mercedes surprised me in the race. Actually, they were quicker than I thought they would be.
They've always had a better race car than qualifying. Particularly over the last few years.
I liked Russell beating Hamilton. I thought that was good for Russell. He got a bit lucky.
He did get
but nevertheless, he still had to bring it home, and that'll do his confidence some good. First legitimate podium.
And
they surprised me actually. I thought, Hamilton was giving Perez. Well, actually, he overcut him, didn't he? So, from Mercedes to be that close to a Red Bull was quite a surprise.
It was, and it was the unfortunate timing of the safety car that actually Hamilton was lining up for an amazing move on Perez, and then the safety car light came on, so he couldn't do the move. And as you say, that's what caused Russell to leapfrog the both of them. That Mercedes definitely looked better, as you've said, and it was interesting to see the sensor as well on the bottom of the car, the orange glow underneath, which I remember AlphaTauri, or Toro Rosso as it was then, used to run sensors on the bottom, and it was always quite fun at the night races to see that lighting up on the floor. So they're obviously looking at the porpoising. The Ferrari porpoises quite badly, but that just seems to be at very high speed on the straights, but the Mercedes does it in corners, and that's where the issues are for that car. Whether it's a second worth of time, though, that's debatable.
Yeah, if you watch it into turn 9 and 10, that really quick left-right, they highlighted this a lot on the Sky coverage, that Leclerc said actually the porpoising doesn't bother him, which I'm amazed by, because the Ferrari looks horrific. But you see, just as they come off the brakes and they turn in, it settles straight away. Whereas the Mercedes, you can see, was still doing it as he was going through the corner. So for some reason, the Ferrari is just as bad, but they seem to reattach the flow on the floor, and it just immediately settles down and he just drives through it. So it's not just aero.
No.
Ferrari seem to have really taken a leap with their power unit, and it accelerates quicker than anything else. So it's aero's some of it. As you said at the start, they just seem to have a really benign car that just gets straight into the sweet spot. My only concern with Ferrari is because apparently operationally they were really good at in Melbourne as well, that during practice, because of the way the track was evolving, they Red Bull thought it was going to be a rear limited track, so they deliberately set their car up to protect the rear tyres, whereas it subsequently went to the front because everyone was suffering graining on the front, and Ferrari preempted that and set their car up to protect the fronts. So they seem to be working well as a team, Ferrari, and you just always wonder when's that going to implode, and they're just going to do what they sort of kind of normally do. But at the moment they seem to be, not only is the car good, but they seem to be working well as a team to get the best out of it, which is quite impressive.
It has been quite impressive seeing Ferrari not act like Ferrari, or quite as Italian. As we've commented before, Wolfbane, they do seem to be operating a lot better, and they do seem to have that base. But as Matt said earlier, that Red Bull probably has more potential in it, but it's sorting out that engine for Red Bull. They've had 5 failures in the past 3 races, which that's pretty poor.
I mean, it speaks for itself, really. They're not going to win anything if they keep this up. And I mean, Verstappen at the moment...
To finish first you have to finish, as somebody used to say.
Verstappen at the moment is 46 points off Leclerc. He can't really afford another... I mean, unless Ferrari implode, which is always a possibility. He can't really afford another engine blowout.
But there are 20 races left in the season, so there's a long way to go.
This is a ridiculously long season.
So, I mean, we've had the majority of the F1 seasons have been shorter than the remaining races left. So there's a long way to go. But yes, we're starting to get a picture that Ferrari are the team to beat. But as Matt has said, the Red Bull's looking pretty strong. A quick shout out.
By the way, I remember when there used to be 15 races a season.
So do I.
Watching it.
So do I. It used to finish on my birthday. It used to be the best birthday present ever if F1 was running.
They used to run in January. They used to start in January.
They did. Well, actually, talking of that, South African Grand Prix might be coming back. That's fresh off the press today.
I read that.
So,
the wrong version of it, but... Wolf, I bet you don't even remember the original version of Kalami, do you?
Probably not. In fact, no, I'm just going to say no, I don't.
Epic. Go and Google it. Go and watch some old YouTube videos of the original. Yeah, it was a proper track.
Absolute crazy track. I only just remember it. I can remember Prost going around it in a Williams. That's like the limit of my knowledge of it.
That was version 2.
Yes, that wasn't the original.
Yeah, that wasn't the original proper scary track. That had a sort of 300-mile long straight and then just very quick sweepers. Yeah, it was a good track. I was kind of hoping when I read the news tonight that they would come back. Oh, please have knocked all the houses down that now cover the old track and redevelop the old one. But no such luck. But there is actually a little bit of the old track that they've kept in the layout. Sort of the top end of the old track is still part of the. But unfortunately, it's all the slow bits. So yeah, go watch some of the old YouTube videos of the old Kalami. Site, in fact, of Nigel Mansell's second win. There you go. It's a fact.
There you go. That's why we've got Matt on the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. he was spouting off some amazing facts when he started off.
Do you know his first win? Do you know his first win?
Brands Hatch, 1985, was it? And
Very
it was
good.
the European Grand Prix and not the
Very
British
good.
Grand Prix.
I was there.
You were there?
Druids. Yeah,
well, I couldn't have been there, Matt, because I hadn't been born. It
was in black and white in those days as well.
Yeah. So, and well, Wolfbane, I mean, his parents probably weren't born at that point either. So anyway,
my parents were young children.
There you go.
That makes me feel slightly better.
There you go. Anyway, back to the Australian GP. So this was the result. We had Leclerc first, Perez second, third was Russell, fourth was Hamilton, fifth Norris, sixth Ricciardo, seventh Ocon, Bottas eighth again for Alfa Romeo. He's having a really nice season there for. Well, I was going to say the Italian squad, but really they're a Swiss squad because they're
really
Sauber.
Nice to see Alfa Romeo doing well.
It's
I
nice
love
to see
Bottas doing well. I love
Bottas.
it.
I was going to say, seeing
I love
Bottas
seeing
doing
it.
well
Yeah, it's
is
great.
great to see. He's really flourishing in that role, and yeah, just lots of points, and just keep doing it, Valtteri. It's good.
To who it may concern.
Well, exactly. In ninth place was Gasly. Bit of a weird season at the moment for AlphaTauri. That's kind of where they need to be, which is skirting the points, but I think everybody likes to see Gasly a bit further up, but that's basically where the car is.
Yeah. Gasly was a bit of an outlier last season. He was kind of best of the rest, but not all the time. And then this season, this season the entire grid's been shaken up. We all know that. Yeah, it's been an interesting season so far for AlphaTauri.
Matt, what would you do if you were Pierre Gasly and you're thinking about your career as a driver? Do you hold out for Red Bull, or do you try and position yourself somewhere else? I mean, I think he'd be a great signing for Mercedes in a year or two, but it's just waiting for him to sort of get that opportunity.
Yeah, Gasly's a funny one. I don't know whether he would, if he was in Red Bull now, would the story be different? I think it would. Being in the pressure cooker with Verstappen, we need to talk about Albon as well and his mega drive. But yeah, so you know, RBR spat Gasly and Albon out. Is he flourishing because he's in a less pressurised environment? And if he went back to Red Bull, how would he react? I don't know. I think he's found his niche. I've read a lot of some of the stuff that it wasn't just the issues he was having on track. They weren't impressed with his attitude off track. He'd go on endless loops of setup changes and seat changes and all sorts of stuff, which I don't think endeared him to the team too much. Now, whether that's changed now or not, I don't know. I think Red Bull. I think he had a pretty stellar season last year, didn't he? He outdrove that car, and that still wasn't enough. I think the door is shut there. Mercedes, that could be interesting when Hamilton retires. I don't know. The trouble is with Gasly, he has some brilliant races, but even then they kind of go a little bit under the radar, to my mind. Has he done enough to convince? Is he in Russell League? I don't think so.
No.
Not quite. So would he be a good replacement for Hamilton? It's tricky. I don't know. He's good. He's very good. But whether he's a superstar, I don't think he's in that top echelon of Leclerc, Russell, Hamilton, Alonso.
No,
Verstappen. I don't think he's there. So I don't know. He'd be a very good number 2, maybe. I don't know. Or he could be amazing and just get a bit of the arm around the shoulder and away he goes. So I think to answer your question, I think Red Bull's shut. I don't think he'll get a look in there, but Mercedes, yeah, possibly if he keeps performing.
If he could time travel, I think if he went to Renault like Alonso did back in the day with Briatore, and Briatore took a fancy for him, I think he'd have flourished there. But there's not really a place like that on the grid anymore for him. But it is a tricky one. Matt mentioned the 10th place man, Alex Albon. He was at Red Bull and did a really good job for somebody with so little experience in that seat, and was harshly dropped, I feel. But then again, that is the Red Bull way. But an amazing drive from the back of the grid, doing pretty much the whole race on one set of tyres, and then pits on the penultimate lap to change tyres and finishes 10th. Good job for Albon. Wolfbane, very quietly done, but nicely done.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know how he was looking on tyres at the end of the race in terms of what he had left, but I feel like if Williams had pit him, I don't know what the gaps were around him actually. I feel like if Williams had pit him maybe a couple of laps earlier, he may have been able to get Gasly, because he was only 3 seconds behind him. But what a race from Albon. How he managed to make those tyres go that long is incredible. Yeah, I have missed watching Albon race, and it was a quiet race from him, but it was a brilliant one and a very good race for Williams as well.
I think he'll do really well this year. I think the slightly less pressurised Williams environment, and Jos Capito is a very good team boss, if you like. And I think he'll do exceptionally well this year. I've always been a fan of his. As you say, Jamie, was unfairly dropped, I think, but again, it was the pressure cooker of being in a team and a car that sort of set up for Verstappen. I think he'll flourish. I think he'll be as good for Williams as Russell was.
Ooh, that's strong talk.
I mean, although I'd go back in the day, Norris and Russell both. Was it Norris or Russell that had sort of pictures of him on their walls as their sort of cartoon hero?
It was Norris.
Yeah, so there's a lot of respect for him from guys who who are top drivers. So I think he'll have a really good season with Williams. 10th in that car to do. I think Wolfie. I think his tyres were okay. I think he came in because he had to. He had to do that mandatory stop. I think he could have carried on. Stroll did him a huge favour.
Yes.
By being a rolling roadblock, that really gave him the chance to get away. But even so, the lap times he was doing on very old tyres was hugely impressive. So, no, I'm really pleased for him. I really hope he gets a second chance, and he's doing as well as I hoped he would. He's making Latifi look pretty average.
I think Latifi's just... I don't know what's going on with him at the moment.
He's in a vicious circle, isn't he?
Yeah, he is a bit.
It's with just touching on Latifi, it seemed like he was getting a handle on the old Formula car, and then obviously they've changed it, and the Williams is lacking in downforce. That's quite clear to see, and he's struggling again. And Albon, as you said, Matt, and as you said, Wolfbane is really driving very well. Tiny Terror in the chat saying he's hoping for more for Williams, not getting my hopes too high though. I think that's quite wise, Tiny, but there's shoots of hope coming from them.
Well, go just touch on the Latifi. Maybe Russell's head had dropped a little bit towards the end. He knew he was off to Mercedes. But Latifi, I think, out-qualified him a couple of times legitimately as well. So
he did,
yes. Yeah, end of last year, he was... And again, out-qualifying Russell is not an easy task. So he was driving, as you say, he was driving well, and I think he's just had a couple of crashes now, and he's lost his confidence, and Albon's just, absolutely... I think even more so than Russell was doing. He's decimating him, so...
I think Albon taking... Was it a year out? Was it? Yeah, it was just 1 year. Yeah, I think that actually did wonders for him, and I think not being back in the whole Red Bull family is the best thing he could do. It's the Red Bull Driver Academy is a vicious place, to put it mildly.
Oh, it's definitely that. It always has been. If you can survive that and get through it all, then you are going to do well. But the fact that only Seb and Vettel Seb and Verstappen have managed to get through and actually get championships. I know Ricciardo's won races, and I mean, Ricciardo's a whole different topic. We could have spent a whole podcast, I think, talking about Daniel Ricciardo's career. But yeah, it shows the cutthroat business of it. But then again, you look at drivers like John-Eric Verne and Sebastian Buemi, who've won championships elsewhere, and clearly they do have the talent, resources, and Felix da Costa as well has won championships. So they are a talented lot, but to get into Formula One, I mean, with that program is hard, and then staying is hard. And Albon definitely deserves to be here, and long may he he continued to be driving well. Let's just have a look at the championship then. We've talked about Leclerc. He's got a huge lead. He's got 71 points leading the championship. Russell is second with 37. So, quick maths, people. That is 34 points between Leclerc and Russell. So that's more than a race win. Sainz, I don't use the term quick maths, I hate it. Sainz is third with 33 points, fourth is Perez with 30, Hamilton is fifth with 28, so championship is still on for Hamilton. Sixth is Verstappen with 25, Ocon has got 20, Norris 16, Magnussen is still there, ninth place with 12 points.
We haven't spoken about Haas, have we? Rob on drums, my teammate, has mentioned it in the chat about Haas.
Yes, let's quickly mention Haas. They were sort of nowhere this weekend, which is a shame.
Yeah, they kind of went back to their default, didn't they? I don't know whether that's... Yeah, that's what they claim setup, but yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, that Schumacher qualified Magnussen, which was...
he did.
Quite a good bounce back for Schumacher after his scary shunt in Saudi, so that was good to see. But yeah, we'll see if they go sort of back to where they were, but I have a sneaky suspicion they won't, but let's see.
And 10th place is Bottas with 12 points as well. The team championship, Ferrari lead with 104 points. Mercedes is second with 65. Red Bull 55. McLaren 24, so fourth place for McLaren. 22 points for Alpine in fifth. Sixth for Alfa Romeo with 13. Haas with 12. AlphaTauri in 8th with 10. Williams have 9th with 1 point, and 10th place for Aston Martin, who are at the back. It was the first time as well that we've been to the new layout of Melbourne and Albert Park. Thoughts about it? Did it improve the racing? Was it better? What do you think, Wolfbane?
It's... I mean, they removed a horrendous corner. Personally, I hated the right-hander on the way up to turn 9-10 chicane, which they removed and turned into originally a DRS zone, and then they got rid of that. I think it was better. It's never been particularly easy to overtake around Melbourne. Well, it's never been easy to make an overtake stick around Melbourne. I think it is an improvement.
Matt, what do you think?
I think it's partly the cars. Obviously, I've enjoyed you on your podcast up to now. I think the cars are brilliant this year. They're following so much easier. So yeah, it was definitely. It didn't go into being the crazy DRS overtake that you can sometimes get. I thought it was a pretty good balance, actually. I think they had to work at it.
I'm glad they got rid of that fourth DRS zone.
Yeah, I think so. I think that was the right move. No, I liked it. I mean, I've always liked Melbourne, but it's always been that track that I think partly everyone loves it. It seems to be a great, the record crowd. I think it was the highest sporting crowd ever in Australia.
Yes.
Which is pretty impressive. So, but also it was always the first race of the year, so it was always that excitement, and then it'd be like, oh, Schumacher's won again. So I think that spark of the first race always sort of made it feel a bit more special than maybe as a racetrack should be. But no, I think the changes were good. It's there was a lot of DRS brought them into range into turn 1 and then lining up into turn 3, but it wasn't a slam dunk when you got there. So no, I think it was overall pretty good, and yeah, the speeds into that high speed turn 9-10 chicane was pretty impressive to watch. So no, I think they did a good job. I think I don't know how much millions they spent on it, but it was yeah. I mean, I didn't watch it live. I watched it on sort of catch up, and I didn't fast forward much, which is a good sign. Even though I was in a bit of a rush to get to Daytona. So yeah, no, I thought it was good. I think they did a good job. I think it wasn't all track. I think the cars are definitely better this year for following, which is really good. It's yeah, I think overall I think they could money well spent. I think.
Yes, I think overall, yes, Melbourne has never been a great circuit for the racing. All you need for Melbourne, though, for great racing is a little bit of water. And it's
Yeah, we can say that anywhere though, can't you?
You can,
Yeah.
exactly.
When
But
was the last wet race at Melbourne?
I'm thinking it could have been
It wasn't
maybe.
2010, was it?
I'm thinking it's 2010 when Button won.
Yeah.
Which is a long time ago now. I'm just looking at my shelf of Formula One cars and just seeing which ones won in the wet at Australia. And yeah, I'm thinking it is Button in 2010, which was the third race of the season as well. So there you go. I think, yes, that special atmosphere, it is Australia. Opening round kind of makes it... Because it used, when it was at Adelaide, it used to be the final round, and then it became the opening round when it moved to Melbourne. I think it should go back to being the opening round. It just gives it that special party atmosphere, rather than Bahrain is a better racetrack, but yeah, it doesn't feel as special or as party
Melbourne
atmosphere, does it?
Yeah. There's something about there is a few tracks that would fit that first, as you say, party atmosphere for the first round of the season to just kind of kick it off with a bang, and Melbourne is probably the best of them.
And also, it was always extra special waking up early at the start of the season, about 3 o'clock in the morning, ready for Formula One qualifying, and then it often sometimes would get rained off, and you'd be sat there waiting for 2 hours for the session
These
to
days
start.
we just get red flags.
Yes. So, no, it has a special place in our hearts, has Melbourne. And talking of Melbourne, really, someone should do a quiz based upon the Australian Grand Prix. And, I mean, Wolfbane's done fantastic the past 3 podcasts. He's maintained a decent record of getting 1 correct each time.
Consistent.
So he's very consistent. But tonight, he's got competition. He's got Matt Psycho, the encyclopedia of Formula One knowledge. There we go. We're building him up again.
Because
what
I'm
I'd
so
like
old, right?
Well, basically, because he's seen the whole of the championship. It's 70 years old, more than, and Matt Psycho's been there for most of it.
Have you watched Grill the Grid? This is another reason why I love Vettel. Have you watched the
Oh, yes,
Grill the
yes,
Grid
I have.
last year? We rattled off all 71 champions. And that was like
Utterly insane.
unbelievable. I got to 1970, I think, and then that was me done, and he just carried on going.
Kept going. Absolutely brilliant. So, I mean, Wolfbane, you've got a chance, shall we say, because you are in the competition. So, what I'd like you to do, if you know the answer, I'd like you to shout your name, and I will go to you. You can ask for the options if you need to. If you can't, either if you can't think of the answer. And this is your chance in the chat as well, if you know the answer, to have a go. But obviously, Matt and Wolfbane, do not look at the chat, because that will be cheating. Turn that off.
I wasn't prepared for this.
There you go, Matt. Well, you say you've been listening to the podcast. You clearly haven't got all the way to the end. Question number 1, then. 3 questions, so let's see. So, as I say, Wolfbane's got one of these right every single time, so let's see what he can do. If he can even get on to the board this time, because he's got competition. Here we go. Which team got the fastest pit stop at Melbourne this year?
Matt.
Oh,
McLaren.
Matt's straight in there. Matt has gone for McLaren. Matt, that is not the correct answer.
They've had it the last couple, but I didn't think they had it this time.
So, Wolfbane, would you like the choices, or have you got a?
I have absolutely no idea. So yeah, please.
Okay, so your choices are Red Bull, McLaren, Ferrari, or Mercedes.
Well, it's not McLaren. I'm going to say Ferrari.
Oh, it's not Ferrari either. It was Red Bull with Sergio Perez did a 2.27 pit stop, which, considering they've got those 18-inch tyres, is absolutely phenomenal. Red Bull are back on it. But no, McLaren did seem very quick, Matt. I know where you got that from.
I think they did a 2.4, I think.
They did, exactly.
Yeah.
I that's what I had in mind when I was setting the question, and then I saw, actually, no, Red Bull won the DHL Pit Stop Award because that's what matters. That's what F1 teams want. They want the Pit Stop Award.
Were they 20-something kilos of wheels?
They're huge now. They need 4 from the World Endurance Championship. I forget which team he was at. He used to just carry those big wheels with one hand. It's absolutely crazy. Anyway, question number 2. So both of you got 0 points. Maybe the listeners got that one. Before Sunday's race, who was the last driver to win the Australian Grand Prix?
Wolfbane.
Oh, Wolfbane's going in.
Hamilton, wasn't it? I think.
You've gone for Lewis Hamilton. Well, Matt's going for... He doesn't even want the options. So it's not Hamilton. Matt.
I think it was to whom it might concern.
Yeah, it was.
It was.
Mr. Bottas.
It was Valtteri Bottas in 2019. To whom it may concern, go F yourself, I think is what he said. Which, considering... Was that the race that Hamilton had a problem and didn't finish, or was that the one he actually beat him at? No, that was the Russian Grand Prix, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, I think Hamilton had... He wasn't a completely clean fight, I don't think, but yeah, he won by 20-something seconds.
Yes.
Yeah, that was his, I think, probably his best win in terms of just dominated the race.
It was Bottas 2.27 or something by that point, wasn't it?
He was on his porridge, wasn't he?
He was. He changed to his porridge. He was going for naked saunas on Netflix, and we were all ready to see his bottom again. Anyway, Matt Psycho's got 1 point.
What do you
Wolfbane.
watch on YouTube?
It's Netflix, Matt. You want to watch some of these Netflix shows? They've got bottoms on. Question number 3. Wolfbane, you need to get this to get your point.
Oh, yeah.
So, here we go. So, the Australian Grand Prix moved to Melbourne in 1996. Who got the pole position at that Grand Prix?
Matt.
Oh, look at this.
Villeneuve.
Was it Jacques Villeneuve? Wolfbane, what would you have said?
I have absolutely no idea whatsoever.
Oh, well, Matt has picked Jacques Villeneuve. He was making his debut for Williams. He should have probably won that race.
He should have.
Yes, it was Jacques Villeneuve winning for... getting the pole position, not winning. It was won by Damon Hill. That race, which...
He finished second. Right behind him.
Right behind him. As a very young fan, I was very happy to see Damon win that race. I was very happy. So Matt Psycho wins 2-0. There we go, Wolfbane. So your record of getting a point has disappeared. I may have to add some more questions for Wolfbane. I may have to do interchanging questions so that you can have a chance, maybe, Wolfbane. Or is that too much?
I don't think I've ever got a chance against Matt, not gonna lie.
Well, I'll
maybe when it comes to like anything, in history, probably. Yeah, I was a bit of a geek, and yeah.
Well, we've got
probably tell you every winner from sort of 1980 to when Schumacher sort of dominated. Because I was that sad.
There we go. That's it. That's why me and Matt get on quite well. I could probably name you every single driver as well.
Well, you impressed me with your favourite ever driver. I wasn't expecting that.
Oh, Jim Clark.
Yeah.
Oh, yep. Absolute legend. Absolute legend, Jim Clark. My history of Formula One, well, I've read a lot of books, shall we say. Anyway, it's Imola is it 2 weeks? It's Imola? I believe it is. It is 2 weeks. Yes. There we go. That's how well prepared I am, knowing when Imola is. And for the really complicated race, it used to be called the San Marino Grand Prix. I still wish it was, just for nostalgia. It used to be the Italian Grand Prix as well.
Jam.
Okay.
Yeah, I gotta say, here's a question for you. When was it the Italian Grand Prix?
1980. I want to say 1986. But I don't think that was... Because 88 was when Enzo died, and it was definitely at Monza. I'll go 86, even though I don't think it is that.
You checked me, but I think it was 1981. I think it's the only time that it wasn't at Monza.
There you go. See, I was in the right decade. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a great circuit. I love Imola. I love Imola just for Acqua Minerale, which is fantastic set of corners. That's just saying it, Acqua Minerale, which just means mineral water, but it sounds brilliant in Italian. So, who do we think will win? The record of getting correct predictions has gone as well, because we both went for Verstappen last time out. So, at Imola, who are you going for, Matt?
I think it's got to be Ferrari, isn't it? I think it's a Ferrari track. The Ferrari seems pretty strong on acceleration, and there's quite a few chicanes now at Imola. So, yeah, I will go with Leclerc, I think.
Wolfbane?
Yeah, I'm going to agree. It's the safe guess, I think, but it's also... at this stage, I don't think Red Bull have it.
I'm going to be predictable as well and go for Leclerc as well. So there you go. If you wanted
Verstappen, I'd like to see Verstappen win it, just
to spice it up
in
and
the
keep
game.
it.
But no, I think the Ferrari's looking very strong.
As we noted at Bahrain, that Ferrari just seems to get out the corners really quickly, and that's what you kind of need coming out of that the final. I forget what they're called. It goes downhill. The final two corners towards the end of the lap to propel you down the home straight. You need that acceleration, and maybe
Rivage?
if there's a bit.
Is it Rivage?
I think it might be Rivage. All I can remember is it having lovely daisies and springtime flowers back in the day, all the pollen at Imola. There you go. Imola.
How good would be a Ferrari win, though? That'd be phenomenal.
Ferrari winning at home is such a brilliant
amazing
sight. So, yeah. A Ferrari 1-2? Let's go Ferrari 1-2. There we go. Let's get Sainz up there. There we go. Bold claim, as Wolfbane says. On that bold note, let's bring it to an end. Thank you, everybody that has joined in and listened, and I hope you enjoy these. They're great fun to do. Hopefully, we have now got our trio up and running. And Matt, he was a late starter, but he is definitely worth having around. So, there you go.
Been a pleasure.
I do say nice things to you, Matt.
Occasionally.
That's
not what you always say on the chat. But
I usually send you a funny GIF or something. Anyway.
It's nice to finally meet Wolfbane as well after many potential squabble on track. We never actually met properly, did we?
No, truth be told, we've barely been on track at the same time together.
I think Interlagos was about the only time that we actually had a proper...
We've actually ever been close to.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope the next endurance event that is rectified and we have a proper fight between the two of you. We are in the process, everybody, of sorting that out as well. So the success of Sunday. Keep an eye on Discord, because Tiny Terror says it's a nice listen. Thanks. Thank you, Tiny Terror. We'll keep an eye on Discord. We'll get announcing some bits and pieces. Hopefully with GT7 we can start sort of planning some bits and pieces now. We've got the first race out the way, so off we go. Good night, everybody. Good night, Wolfbane.
Good night.
Good night, Matt.
Good night. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And good night, everybody. Stay safe. Love your neighbours. And I don't really know what I'm doing at the end because I'm rambling and I'm quite tired. So I think that's because
hopefully you get you get a bit better and avoid the sea.
What better at racing?
I've given up hope for that. But...
No, it's been too long now. This is a brand new game. I can't get any better at that. Anyway, hopefully, yes, as you may tell by my voice, I'm not 100%. It's just end of term lurgy. That's all it is. Anyway, good night, everybody. Bye-bye.